Hey guys, welcome back to Cardboard Kitchen. It's been a few days since my last video. If you're new here, thank you for showing up. If you like the content, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a comment, all that good stuff. If you're back again for another video and you've not subscribed, now would be a good time to subscribe, don't you think? You've obviously been coming back to these videos. Um, Also, hit the notification bell. Get notified whenever I upload this stuff. We do have a Facebook page. I usually try to leave a link to the Facebook page in the comments. Um, if you guys want to, go to the Facebook page, comment on stuff, whatever, send us messages via the Facebook page, something like that. That would be great. So, with all that information, we're going to try and get into the kitchen for today's video. It's it's a wee bit of a spicy one today, and the reason I say it's a wee bit of a spicy one today is because it's all about an infinite combo you can do. Infinite combo. It is infinite for as long as you want to do it. It's not really a combo. So, if you've been playing for a while, you know of a card called Devoted Druid. There are a number of cards that combo with Devoted Druid. There's I think it's called Quill Spike. It's a green black creature that lets you remove a counter from a creature you control to give it +3/+3. You also have to pay a green or a black to do it. But Devoted Druid is a 0/2 elf druid creature that costs one generic and one green. And it says you can tap to add a green, but it has another ability that states put a -1/-1 counter on Devoted Druid, untap Devoted Druid. So you can tap it for a green, put a -1 counter on it, untap it, tap it for another green. With the Quill Spike, you make the Quill Spike infinitely huge because it gets like +2 or +3, something like that. Then you can just punch with the Quill Spike. With, I think it's Falco from. The one that was based off of the like five big family gangs of New York. I can't remember the name of the set, but it was it's the one that had Spar's headquarters, Zeator's proving ground, all that fun stuff. It was your allied Triome searchable stuff. Um, Falco says you can remove a counter from a creature you control in order to cast a spell from the top of your library. So with Devoted Druid, as long as the spell off the top of your library is costing you plenty of green mana, you can just make infinite green mana via Falco and Devoted Druid and cast spells off the top of your library. However, something that I found, I was playing with some of my buddies the other day, this past Wednesday. What's today? Saturday? Yeah, Wednesday evening, and it's currently Saturday. Um, and so I came across. I was playing with some buddies, and I was playing one of my buddies' decks, and he's got a card in there called Machine God's Effigy. So I'm going to read that to you real quick. I'm hoping to find, if you're watching these videos real quick, and you know of like free, good editing software that'll let me like put the pictures somewhere in these videos of these cards, so that way you guys can follow along too. Um, Please comment, let me know. Currently, with the things that are going on, um, past couple of days have been a little more rough than usual, so it's been a little difficult to dig into trying to find that some of that kind of stuff. Uh, Back on topic, however, Machine God's Effigy. It's a 4 mana artifact that taps for a blue. However, it's special. It's very special. You may have Machine God's Effigy enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it's an artifact and has tap add blue. And in reminder text, it says it's not a creature. So if you have Devoted Druid and then you play Machine God's Effigy as a copy of Devoted Druid, you have you now effectively have infinite blue-green mana because Machine God's Effigy has all of Devoted Druid's abilities as well as the ability to tap and add blue. But you can put neg 1 counters on Machine God's Effigy in order to untap it as part of Devoted Druid's abilities. So now you have effectively infinite Simic mana, which could be huge for some of these other deck lists and stuff like that. So if you go turn 1, land, Soul Ring, something, some other Arcane Signet, whatever, and then you go turn 2, I don't know, birds, some ramp thing, and Devoted Druid, you could then play Machine God's Effigy on turn 3 and have infinite Simic mana. At which point, hopefully you win. If you're in Simic, you should win because now you have infinite mana on turn 3. Again, this is what we like to call magical Christmas land. This is like, I have these things and nobody can stop me and nobody can interact with me and I get to do what I want. It's what we call magical Christmas land. It's very difficult to find magical Christmas land that early in the game in a format that is a 100 card singleton. So again, if you're new, keep that in mind. Like, it's very good stuff, but it's based on an assessment of, yay, I get to run rampant. But like, at that point you have infinite Simic mana. There's a number of things you could do in Simic with Simic mana. You could blue Sun Zenith yourself. You could green Sun Zenith. You could Court of Calling. I'm trying to think of anything else that you could do in Simic. I mean, you can play, depending on what your hand looks like and depending on what deck you're playing. Not everybody plays Momir Vig. Personally, I would put this in Momir Vig and just be like, yay, I cast creature spells and go fetch creatures, and eventually I'll win because I have infinite Simic mana and I get to fetch out the creatures I want. But if you're not playing Momir Vig and you're playing some other Simic commander, you can do whatever. There's one that costs a blue and a green that for a blue and a green and 2, you get to draw a card and put a land from your hand into play. It's a legendary creature. I think it's from the Dungeons and Dragons standard set. I think it's Gretchen. I'm not positive on that though. But now it's like, oh, I have play Gretchen for 2 and have infinite mana. Now I'm going to draw my deck, put all my lands into play, and find the pieces that I need or whatever, and win the game. Trying to think of some other Simic stuff you could play. You could play the, I mean, if you have infinite Simic mana, you could play the Azuri that cares about proliferating. So you could probably like dump your hand with a whole bunch of stuff that you want to proliferate, and then play that Azuri, proliferate, draw a bunch of cards. If there's a creature in Simic that for 5 mana will let you proliferate. So if you've got that with Azuri and this combo, and here's the best part. You can use your proliferate to proliferate the neg 1 counters because they don't matter. Proliferate's also a choice, so whenever your proliferate goes on the stack, you choose any number of. You can choose 0 and you still get to draw the cards. So, if there's nothing in play you want to necessarily proliferate, or if there's nothing in play you can proliferate, you still get to draw your cards because you can choose 0, which is very unique for proliferate. So that Azuri, lets you draw cards every time you proliferate, so that's good. Trying to think of other. Let's just take a quick look here. Just going to take a quick look at Simic-related commanders that you could do this with that would be fairly dumb. You could do it with Keenan, Bonder, Prodigy, if you wanted to. That's a Simic commander that I've seen a ton of play recently that, I really would personally would prefer not to see it. But, if you're doing this combo, you can do that, and Keenan will let you dig through your deck and find things and put them into play. So that's pretty good. Those things aren't working. Those things aren't going to help. Azuri Stalker of Fears is the one that cares about proliferating and drawing cards. So the weird thing about most of the Simic commanders is finding ways to do the things you want to do with the mana, with the infinite mana. Oh, so here's another thing. If you have the infinite mana build, like if you've got the Devoted Druid and then the Machine God's Effigy, and now you have your infinite mana loop. If you're playing Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath, you technically have that. It comes into play. The first time it comes into play, it costs you 3 mana, and then it's 3, 5, 7, 9, so on and so on. But when it comes into play, you draw a card and you get to put a land from your hand into play, and then you also gain 3 life. So, like, you could play that and just constantly have it. It sacrifices itself, so you could just constantly have it go back to the command zone. Just pay. You have infinite mana, so you just pay the taxes and you really don't care. But it's always drawing you a card. If you have a land in your hand or you drew a land, you get to put that land into play, and then you also gain 3 life. So with Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath as the commander, that's a good one. Yeah, most of the Simic commanders I'm looking at, other than like, it's Gretchen Titchwillow from the first Dungeons and Dragons standard legal set. If you have plenty of creatures, or if you dump your hand of relevant things that are creatures per se, if you go infinite mana and then you're like, oh, I have dumb creature, dumb creature, dumb creature, and then your commander is like Tashana, Voice of Thunder. You cast Tashana, you draw a card for each creature you control, and then hopefully you can play more stuff. Or if you're playing big creatures and your commander is Prime Speaker Zagana, you're going to draw a number of cards equal to her power after her entering stuff resolves, which gives her +1/+1 counters based on the greatest power among creatures you control. So it'll be whatever that power is +1, depending on what you have in play. Most looking through this, most of the that doesn't really help. I mean, you can dig for stuff, but you need to draw cards to be able to win. If you're making infinite mana, and you're playing a Simic partner pair, which would be Thrasios, Triton of Hero, and Kydel, Chosen of Krufix, you win. You should win. I don't know why you wouldn't, but you should win, because at that point you have infinite colored mana, and then using your infinite colored mana, the Thrasios Triton Hero lets you scry one, and then you can filter if you scry one and you don't like the card, so you put it on the bottom, and then the next card is a non-land. You draw it, and it goes to your hand, and then eventually Kydale will make a number of colorless mana equal to the number of cards you've drawn. But if the card that you reveal off of Thrasios is a land, it goes straight into play, and then because you have infinite mana, you can keep cycling this to hopefully get through your deck. But once you get your lands into play, the Thrasios is just like draw a card, draw a card, draw a card, draw a card, and it's really good because you don't have to tap the Thrasios. Yeah, like there's not a ton of I personally feel that Momir's probably the best option for something like this, the Devoted Druid Machine God's Effigy combo, just because at that point every blue green creature spell is tutor for the creature that you need to go do things. And if you're doing it on turn 3, like we were saying, Magical Christmas Land, more than likely nobody's going to really be able to stop you. And if they can stop you, they're probably not paying attention to stop your infinite mana combo. So if they don't stop that, you can still continue to do stuff. Like if they counter Momir or something like that, you can just recast Momir, no big deal. The big issue is it's an infinite mana combo, and if you hit Magical Christmas Land and you get to do it on turn 3, you need to be playing a commander that's going to dig you out of an empty hand, because more than likely, obviously you'll have infinite mana and you can basically dump your hand, but then the commander you're playing needs to dig you out of that. You need to be able every card in your hand that you do play needs to be able to replace itself in some way. Usually a commander that can help you do that's really good. Like I was saying, if you're playing Azuri Stalker of Spheres, there's a number of creatures that say just pay an amount of mana and proliferate. So because you have infinite mana, as long as you can play those creatures and play Azuri, you can draw your deck. If you play Thrasios and Kydel, you don't even have to play Kydel. You could just play Thrasios as the commander. But Thrasios, Kydel as your commander options let you have one fewer cards in your commander deck that you don't have to worry about like trying to filter out. So that's the only reason I would play the partner basis, is because you would still have a total of 100 cards, but you have 2 cards in the command zone and 98 cards in your deck instead of 99. A lot of people don't see much of a difference when you do stuff like that, but your competitive players, more often than not, will tell you how much of a difference that really does make. So even like if you're playing partners, you should be doing fairly good. You could play Thrasios and Sakashima of 1,000 Faces. You're still in Simic because Thrasios is Simic. But at that point, you can clone Thrasios, even though you don't really need to. You could use the Sakashima to clone other stuff. If you're playing, they were just up here, and I mentioned them, and now I can't remember their names. Prime Speaker Zagana, and or Tishana, Voice of Thunder as your commanders. If you're playing Tishana, Voice of Thunder, you're probably playing mostly creatures. At that point, you're probably like, I have infinite mana, dump my hand of creatures, play Tishana, draw a card for each creature I control, and then, play more things and do more things. Prime Speaker Zagana also cares about creatures, but specifically creatures with really big numbers. Creatures that are like 5/5, 6/6s, whatever the case is. So typically, like if you've got infinite mana to be able to play stuff, play a really, really big creature, play Prime Speaker Zagana, get those counters and do all that stuff. Gretchen's a good commander because it's literally 2 mana to play Gretchen, and then 4 mana to use her ability, which is draw a card. You may put a land from your hand onto the battlefield, and you don't have to tap her or anything. She doesn't need to have haste. She doesn't need to be unaffected by summoning sickness. You just pay 4 mana to do it. So if you've got your infinite mana, you can play Gretchen, and then you can draw your deck to your win pieces. I personally prefer Momir because at that point I play Momir, and then I just play a creature, tutor a creature, play a creature, tutor a creature. I can go get the pieces I need faster at that point versus the Gretchen stuff or any of the other ones. The other ones can potentially get you there, but Momir Simic Visionary is more of, I have infinite mana, let's play Momir, let's play a creature, tutor up the creature that I want to have that's going to let me redo, like, in this scenario, you would probably be like, Momir Vig, probably play Gretchen in the list. Play your Gretchen, tutor up a Temur Sabertooth. You have your infinite mana, bounce the Gretchen, replay the Gretchen, triggering Momir. Go find a clone to clone Momir. Bounce the Gretchen, play your clone, cloning Momir that can clone Momir. Bounce the Gretchen, play the Gretchen. Now tutor up two things. Tutor up two more, just tutor up more clones. And then, so that way every time you clone Momir, every time you replay Gretchen, you get extra things. But essentially, you're going to filter all the creatures out of your deck. You're going to be a creature heavy deck, but you're going to filter all the creatures out of your deck. And then you're going to play those creatures and do things with those creatures depending on what those creatures are. Personally, I feel like once you have all your creatures out of your deck, you should be playing the ape shaman guy. He's 2 triple green. He has three abilities, 4 abilities. 3 abilities. He says whenever you cast a creature, he's green. Whenever you cast a creature spell, you choose one of the following. You can look at the top 5 cards of your library, put a land from among them into play tapped. You can gain 4 life, or you can destroy an artifact or a creature. So personally, I feel like once you've gotten all of your creatures out of your deck, using the Momir, Temur Sabertooth, Gretchen-ish combo because you went infinite mana, you then play the Ape Shaman, and then you play Deadeye Navigator, and you blink out all of your clones, and you clone the Ape Shaman, and now every creature spell that you cast, there's no more creatures to tutor out, so you don't have to tutor with Momir, but every creature spell you cast now, like your Ape Shaman can help filter out all your lands. Now, granted, they come into play tapped, but if you're playing a Momir list, you're probably also playing Peregrine Drake. And if you're playing Peregrine Drake, you'll be able to untap those lands and use them, so that's not terrible. So like once you've done all that, like you filtered out all your creatures, you're gonna play creatures, do stupid things. You're in blue green, so you can play stupid dumb creatures and do really stupid dumb things. But again, it's if you get the magical Christmas land hand, it's untapped land, Soul Ring, Arcane Signet. Next turn, using the Soul Ring and land, you can play Devoted Druid, and then you can play another land. It doesn't necessarily. You could play the Simic Growth Chamber, which is the Simic bounce land, bounce your forest, use your Arcane Signet, play like Birds of Paradise. Turn 3, play your forest that you bounced. Not that you necessarily have to. Use your Simic land, your Simic Growth Chamber, and your Soul Ring, and play Machine God's Effigy and clone your Devoted Druid and go hog wild, essentially. Your Machine God's Effigy is not going to die because it's not a creature, but you can still put neg 1 counters on it in order to untap it, and then you can use it to make green or blue at that point. I literally, I was playing my buddy's deck Wednesday, and he had a Machine God's Effigy in it, and I was like, oh, that's really dumb. And then I thought about it, and I'm like, wait a second. If somebody had a devoted Druid in play, I would just make infinite mana, and I was in a deck that was 3 colors, so I would make 2 of the 3 colors I needed infinitely. And then the third color I would just have to use sparingly, but it's mostly the blue-green color with a splash of that third. And at that point, I would just be like, ooh, I'm gonna do whatever I want. But nobody played a Devoted Druid, and he doesn't have a Devoted Druid in his deck. So didn't get to play my own and then clone it, and go infinite mana, which was very, very sad for me. But yeah, finding stupid things like that is one of the things that keeps me pulled into the Commander format of Magic the Gathering, because it's a clone that isn't a creature. So pretty dumb. Um, it's a clone that will allow you to clone any creature in play, and it itself will not be a creature, and it itself will retain the ability to tap and add a blue. So you could clone any critter, and then if you had some way of like consistently untapping it, I'm trying to think. So like if somebody had a Feyburrow Elder in play, and you had, let's say you were in Sultai, which is green, blue, and black, and you had green, blue, and black permanents in play, you could Machine God's Effigy, cloning somebody's Feyburrow Elder. Oh, that's freezing that up a bit much. And then you could use your Feyburrow, you could use your current Machine God's Effigy version of Feyburrow Elder to make 3 mana instead of 1. So the only thing at that point would be like finding ways to untap itself. Which there are ways to do it. It's a little harder to. There are a lot of things. There are a lot more things that will affect like untapping of creatures than there are of things that will solely like single target untap an artifact. There's Unwinding Clock, so you can untap all of your artifacts during everybody's turn. But at that point, it's really difficult. If you were in some kind of a token deck that played blue, and somebody played played a Midnight Guard, you could clone their Midnight Guard, or you could play your own Midnight Guard. At that point, you're in blue-white, probably plus another color. You could clone the Midnight Guard, so now your Machine God's Effigy is a copy of the Midnight Guard. It can tap for blue, and it'll untap every time a creature comes into play. So depending on what's in your hand spell-wise, or what effects you have in play that you can make creatures with, or something of that nature, you can now just be like, oh, tap the Effigy for a blue, play this thing, make X whatever tokens, I get X untap triggers, make X blue mana, play bigger spells, whatever the case is. You have to be careful if you clone anything that's any legendary creature, because if you control the legendary creature, they're both technically legendary with the same name, even though one's not a creature and one is. So you still have to pick one of those two things to keep. So you wouldn't get to do both. That was a rule thing that we had to look up, because I tried to use it to clone a legendary creature that I controlled, and I was like, but this isn't a creature, even though they're both legendary and they both have the same name. This one's strictly an artifact, this one's a creature. The legendary rule doesn't care that one is strictly an artifact and one is strictly a creature. It says they are both legendary, they both have the same name, pick one of them, keep that, get rid of the other. So you can't really do that shenanigans. You can clone a legendary creature that's in play as long as it's an opponent's legendary creature and not yours. So like if you're playing a deck that plays blue and you're playing a decent number of creatures, or your hand's a decent number of creatures, and somebody plays like a Tulane, you can clone their Tulane for 4 mana, and now all of a sudden you're doing Tulane nonsense in a deck that's not, more than likely not white and not playing Tulane. Might not even be green either. There's a number of things. There's a number of good potential clone capabilities that you could use it with. But I wanted to make the video focused around if you can find ways to make it so that you can just effectively tap and untap infinitely whenever you wanted. Devoted Druid is the easiest one to use with that, because it's the Machine God's Effigy itself is not a creature, so you can put as many neg 1 counters as you want on it, and it'll untap and it'll never die until somebody's like, I'm gonna turn that into a critter. There are ways to do that. There are ways to turn artifacts into creatures that people might play against you, and you have to be aware of that. It's not common. It's not, it's not something you're going to see every day. But the games where you do see it, it could ultimately just wreck you. You're like, haha, I'm going infinite. And they're like, no, no, no. When you hit number X, we're going to respond and do a thing at instant speed and turn it into a creature. Now, you can respond and continue your loop to make infinite mana. But at that point, you're going to have to come up with some number and be like, cool, I stop at this number because now I know it's going to go away and I can't just, whatever. Or you play some kind of a protection spell. In Simic, there are 2 protection spells. 2 that I feel you should play, 2 that you can play. If you're not playing these, why are you not playing these? So the 2 spells you can play in Simic that protect your stuff really well. The first one, a lot of green players know this one. It's called Heroic Intervention. It gives all of your stuff hexproof and indestructible. So if they're playing a board wipe, it doesn't go away. If they're playing like a mass target, there are some spells that are, X targets, and then you do this. Well, now they all have hexproof, and all your targets just fizzle. The other spell that a lot of people that I see that are playing Simic that they aren't running, that is a protection spell that I don't understand why they're not running it, because if you're in the Boros colors, you're going to play Teferi's Protection and Boros Signet, or Boros Charm. Sorry, you're gonna play both of those. So I don't see why you wouldn't play this other card if you're not in Simic, and that is Simic Charm. So Simic Charm has 3 modes, like most of the charms do. Most of the charms have 3 modes. I think the 3 color charms have 4 modes. I'm not positive on that. But one of the modes that I find very, very often that I'm using on Simic Charm is give all of my permanents hexproof until end of turn for 2 mana. It's a blue and a green. So with this little infinite mana combo we just said, you can go infinite, and then if they're like, I want to target it, when you hit this 2 mana, hey, it has hexproof, your target fizzles. They have to respond and retarget it on top of your Simic Charm. And then at that point, if you also have the Heroic Intervention, they now have to respond to the Heroic Intervention and do it again. If they can't do it again and the Heroic Intervention or the Simic Charm or whichever one resolves, you don't have to worry for the rest of the turn. But at that point, you're probably going to want to play, in most of the decks that I play that play green, these are 3 staple cards that I play in almost every single list that I play that includes green, and that is Eternal Witness, Timeless Witness, and Green Warden of Marasa. And the reason Eternal Witness, if you've been playing for a while, you know what it does. It's 1 green for a 2/1 creature that says when it comes into play, return any target card from your graveyard to your hand. Timeless Witness does the same thing. It's 2 generic green, so it costs you 1 generic more, but Timeless Witness has another ability that while it's in your graveyard, you can exile it and make a 4/4 copy that comes in and punches somebody, which is good, but you still get your enter the battlefield effect. And then Green Warden of Marasa is a 6 mana version, so you have a 3-drop, a 4-drop, and a 6-drop. Green Warden Marasa is a 5/4 instead of a 2/1. I think Timeless Witness is a 2/2. But Green Warden of Marasa is 4 green, and it's a 5/4. When it comes into play, you do the same effect as an Eternal Witness. However, it has a secondary portion, and this is why it costs you 6 mana. But it's also an elemental for those of you playing elemental lists. It states that when it dies, you may exile it from your graveyard, and if you do, you get to do the return any card from your graveyard to your hand a second time. That doesn't come up as much, especially in my playgroups, because more than likely in my playgroups, it's probably going to die, but we would rather just have it be in the graveyard so that we could recycle our graveyard stuff. If you're playing predominantly blue and you're not playing in Simic, but you're playing like instants and sorceries, there's a creature called Archaeomancer. It's 2 generic, blue, blue. It'll let you, when it comes into play, it'll let you return an instant or sorcery from your graveyard to your hand. It's not as good as the Witness line, because the Witness line is any card from your graveyard to your hand instead of strictly instants and sorceries. There are a couple of elves in the Golgari run color combination that will let you do any permanent from your graveyard to your hand. The Witness line is just better. The Witness line has originally been around longer, because it's any card. It just says any card you want. You can get a permanent like a land, planeswalker, whatever, or you can get an instant or sorcery, or you can whatever the case is. You can get anything you want back from your graveyard when it comes into play. There's also a snake. It's 2 generic and a green for a 1 power, I believe 3 toughness snake that has Death Touch. So it'll do the same thing as the Eternal Witness line. It'll let you get any card you want from your graveyard back to your hand. However, there's a catch. The catch is you have to target an opponent, and they get to do the same thing. So it still costs 3. It's just 1 fewer green. And because it's 1 fewer green, you have to also let an opponent. Now you get to target the opponent. So you could just target an opponent that doesn't have anything in their graveyard, and it's like, haha, you get a thing and I get a thing. Oh, you don't have anything? Cool, I get my thing. Again, I'm digressing from, like, I've played Simic the longest out of any color combination. I absolutely love green. Anytime I find cards that I can put into my Momir Vig Simic list and just like have it go nuts, I'm super happy, super ecstatic. The real sad part is I was playing very heavily when Machine God's Effigy came out, and it was not until this past Wednesday did the thought of Devoted Druid and Machine God's Effigy hit my brain and be like, haha, here's the thing, and you can do it really early, and if you do it early enough, you can just go nuts. I'm also kind of like a clone guru. I like playing a lot of things, but I find more often, oddly enough, my decks run better when they're doing the same things other people are doing, so I play clones. I'm not playing all of the clones, because there are some clones that are really good that are not in Simic colors, but I'm playing most of the good ones in Simic. There's one that I can't play in Simic, and it's Dax Duplicant. Dax Duplicant is a red and a blue and 2 generic. It's a clone that'll clone any creature in play, except the Dax Duplicant version has Dethrone and Haste. So it's the only clone that naturally gives haste whenever you clone, which is nuts. It's nuts. You can play regular clone. I would only play regular clone if you have a spot to fill, because I would personally prefer to play stunt double. Stunt double and the regular clone card are the exact same mana cost for the exact same thing. The difference is stunt double has built-in flash, which means you can cast it at instant speed. The regular clone doesn't, so you have to play effects that'll let you play it at flash. Spark Double's a really good clone if you're playing any kind of a deck that wants to clone the commander, for 1 or 2 extra copies. You're probably playing Spark Double as well as the Sakashima line. Spark Double's good because it'll clone any legendary creature, except Spark Double is not a legendary version. Spark Double also enters with a +1/+1 counter. Sakashima the Imposter will clone any legendary, except it retains the name Sakashima the Imposter. So it's a copy of the creature, except it has its own name. It retains its own name. So it was the first clone a legendary and have 2 of the same legendary. And it originally came out in, I think it was Saviors of Kamigawa. It looks like a little lantern symbol. And then at some point they made Sakashima of Thousand Faces, which is another legendary. It'll clone a legendary, but it has built-in extra text of the legendary rule doesn't apply to permanents you control. So you can clone a legendary. They will both be the same name, same legendary, except one will say the legendary rule doesn't apply to permanents you control. So then you don't have to worry about the legendary rule. So those are the three, Sakashima the Imposter, Sakashima of Thousand Faces, and Spark Double are the three big clones if you're trying to clone your commander and you're in blue. Something to note is Spark Double can clone a Planeswalker. So if you're playing a deck that's playing blue and you have a Planeswalker as your commander, that's a big one because Spark Double can still clone your commander, and it's a non-legendary version of a Planeswalker, which is pretty dumb, pretty good. I don't know. I've kind of rambled on a little bit, quite a lot actually, about the Devoted Druid, Machine God's Effigy, and the commanders that I think are good with it. So I guess technically, if you have the mana and you're in snakes, if somebody wants to tag the professor in this, because I know he loves his snakes, if you do this combo and you have a snake creature in play that can swing and Cassetto is your commander, you kill somebody. You flat out kill somebody on turn 3. So if you go like turn 1 land, untapped land, Soul Ring, Arcane Signet into one of the 1-drop snakes, and then turn 2. Could you do it on turn 2? Let's see, turn 2. That would be 2, and then 1, 2. You would need 2 extra mana. So you could, in theory, technically do it on turn 2. It's really wonky. There are a couple of ways to do it. You either need Lotus Petal or the green creature that you can exile from your hand and generate a green mana. So you could, in theory, go turn 1, untapped land, into Soul Ring, into Arcane Signet, into a 1-drop snake. Turn 2, Lotus Petal, use Lotus Petal in your land, Devoted Druid, play another untapped land, use Soul Ring, your untapped land, your Arcane Signet, into Machine God's Effigy of the Devoted Druid, make infinite Simic mana, play Cassetto, Orochi Archmage. So Cassetto is a snake wizard. It's a 2/2 in Simic. It costs you 1 green blue. Has an ability that states blue and a green. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. If that creature is a snake, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. So Professor over at Tolarian Community College, if you're watching this, this is a special prop to you. Assuming you have magical Christmas Land, you can, in theory, on turn 2 in Simic, dome 1 player for 40 plus damage to death. I think there's a snake. There's either a snake or a changeling. You could also play a changeling, because a changeling is every creature type. There's either a snake or a changeling that says whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you draw that many cards or something of that nature. So like at this point, not only do you have infinite mana, like if you do that, if you hit that magical Christmas Land, Prof, personally, I really want to see you do this. Personally speaking, I really want to see you do this, Prof. It's not a snake tribal deck, but if you could do this and do snakes and maybe do this and I don't know, punch Josh Lee Kwai to death with a snake, I guess. I'm not sure. Whoever, I definitely watch some of these other channels. I predominantly watch Prof for his reviews on like the various MTG products and stuff. I think he does a really good job of reviewing a lot of those products. But yeah, Prof, if you're listening, Cassetto, you can, in theory, assuming you have all the magical stuff. Again, it's magical Christmas Land, but you can, in theory, go infinite mana, you have a snake in play that can swing infinite mana on turn 2, Cassetto, make your snake huge and unblockable, and punch one player to death and be like, haha, I've killed one player. If there are other things that you can do with that infinite mana and continue to do things, that's also good. But eliminating the one player at the table that you believe is your biggest threat is Josh Lee Kwai. If you're watching this, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry, but I've got it pulled up on the screen, and as I'm reading some of this stuff, and it's popping in my head, and it's making me go crazy, and I kind of like it. I kind of think it's fun. Jimmy Wong, if you're watching this, hey, maybe try this out too. I don't know. Whatever the case is, it's dumb stuff. But yeah, like if you're in Simic and you do that combination of Devoted Druid and then Machine God's Effigy and nobody can stop you, you produce infinite Simic mana. If you're in Simic and you're playing, personally I prefer Momir Vig. If not Momir Vig, Gretchen Titch Willow. Otherwise, Tishana Voice of Thunder, Prime Speaker Zagana. Thrasios, like you need to be playing, if you're doing this in Simic, you need to be playing a commander that's either going to draw you cards or is going to say, oh, I cast, Momir's like, you cast a creature spell, go tutor for a creature. So that's relevant because if you cast a creature spell, you can go find another creature to also cast and then tutor through your creatures. And that's really good and really useful. So it's kind of like drawing cards a little bit better, more than likely. But again, if you're doing this combo, you're in Simic, you really do need to be playing one of the available Simic commanders that are going to draw you cards, or let you dig cards, or let you, Momir, let you tutor stuff, or something of that nature. You could even technically play one of the partner pairs. What does this guy do? A number of cards, draw that many cards instead. So you could play... You could play Eligeth, Crossroads, Augur with the 6-mana Kodama that says when a permanent comes into play, if it wasn't put in with Kodama's ability, you can put a permanent from your hand into play with equal or lesser mana value. So Eligeth says it's a blue creature, it has partner, so you could partner it with the Kodama because the Kodama also has partner. It's a 6-mana creature, the Kodama is a 6-mana creature. Between the two, you have your Simic. But the Eligeth is a 5/6 Sphinx, has flying, says if you would scry a number of cards, draw that many cards instead. So if you're in Simic with... you have to find a loop of doing it. But if you can double up on a couple of things, like you'd have to be able to double up on your enter the battlefield triggers. That's probably going to be a little difficult in strictly Simic. You can definitely do it in Sultai or Bant. Bant lets you play Elish Norn, Mother of Machines. Sultai lets you play Yarok. Both of those double enter the battlefield triggers. One's better than the other. Both cost 5 mana. One of them's better than the other, but the one that's better than the other one, the Elish Norn, Mother of Machines, which is better than Yarok, Elish Norn could not be your commander in order to do this. Neither could Eligeth and Kodama. You would have to be playing some Bant variation of commanders in order to be able to play all of those cards and do it. If you're playing Yarok, Yarok would be your commander. Yarok would be your commander, so that would get your double ETB triggers out of the way and no issues. But then Eligeth and Kodama would have to be in your deck, and you would have to find a way to get those. And the reason this is kind of important is because you can, using your infinite mana nonsense, you can cast a spell, have it come into play. Kodama's ability will trigger, put a scry land into play. The scry land says scry. There's a number of lands that say they come into play tapped. When they come to play, scry one. So then, if Elegeth is also in play, your scry one becomes draw one. And then, if you have something trigger off of that land coming into play that makes a token, you can then trigger Kodama's ability and put in one of the bounce lands. And this is why you need to double up on your enter the battlefield effects. One, your scry one becomes scry one, and you do it twice, so you would effectively draw 2 cards. But you play one like Guildless Commons, Simic Growth Chamber. If you're in Yarok colors, you would play Golgari Rot Farm and Dimir Aqueduct. If you're in Bant colors, you've got your Selesnya Sanctuary, Simic Growth Chamber, and Azorius Chancery. And then your 3 scry lands in those color combinations. And the reason you do this is because you want your bounce land to come in and bounce itself as well as bounce the scry land, so that you can re-enter the scry land off of something coming off of like a token from the Kodama's ability to get your scry trigger over, which then triggers Elegeth's ability to draw you a card. So in pure Simic, it's a little difficult because in pure Simic, I don't think there's anything that will double up your land triggers strictly in Simic. I do believe you have to get that 3rd color, which is really problematic unless somebody has one of those things in play, preferably the Yarok, because if somebody's got the Elishnorn Mother of Rune, the Elishnorn Mother of Machines in play, and you clone that, nobody has entered the battlefield effects because of how they work. So it would have to be a Yarok. So it's a little trickier in strictly Simic to get your double ETB from lands. I mean, you can get your double ETBs from other things, creatures entering, artifacts entering, stuff like that. Play Panharmonicon, got that covered. But strictly from the lands is a little bit harder. If you had ways to use that mana, if you had that mana and you had Staff of Domination, I think it is. It's not the Staff of Phyrexia, it's the other one. It's the one that came before it. So the Staff of Domination with your infinite mana will let you do whatever you want. You can use it to draw cards. You can untap it. You can use it to untap creatures. You can use it to tap creatures. You can use it for whatever you need. But it'll let you draw your deck and play more things and do all that fun stuff. So one of the reasons that plus your infinite mana lets you do whatever you want to do, but for a little bit less in your cycling of how to do things as far as mana to like save mana, if you add in Zimone Quandrix Prodigy, which you don't need to do, you're adding one extra unnecessary piece. Zimone would also have to have haste. Zimone could not have summoning sickness. Like, it would need to have haste. Because Zimone will let you put a land from your hand on the battlefield tapped for 1 mana, and then you tap Zimone. Or for 4 mana and tap Zimone, you draw a card. If you have 8 or more lands in play, you draw 2 cards instead. So it's the Staff of Domination, I believe, is 1 mana, untap the staff, 5 mana, tap the staff, draw a card. So for 5, well, I don't know. It's like 3 mana. Yeah, if you add Zimone, it actually makes it worse. Never mind. Yeah, you don't have to worry about Zimone. If you add Zimone, it's adding an extra step you don't need to add. Never mind. It's crunching the numbers in my head. It's actually more expensive mana wise. But yeah, okay. So this is a big one. If you have Elegeth in the deck, you could technically play Arwen Undomiel. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I haven't used this one. It's the Simic Arwen that whenever you scry, you get to put a 1/1 counter on target creature, but for 6 mana, you get to scry 2. So if you've got your infinite mana, you can play your Arwen, and then if you also have Elegeth in your hand, you can play your Elegeth, and now you're paying 6 mana to draw 2. When you says if you scry instead, draw that many cards, so you don't technically get the scry, so you don't get to move you don't get the 1/1 counters, but you're drawing cards, so it doesn't matter. Okay, so here's another fun one. If you're playing some good old fashioned idiotic cards, Xenograft is the one that I can remember off the top of my head, but it costs 6 mana. I believe it's called Arcane Adaptation for 3 mana. It's a blue enchantment. But if you have one of those in play along with your infinite mana combo, and you name dragons, Corlessa Scale Singer will let you play the Xenograft and the Arcane Adaptation. If you call dragons whenever those come in, all of your creatures, regardless of where they are, become dragons in addition to their other types. Corlessa Scale Singer is Simic. It's a dragon bard. It's a legendary creature. It allows you to look at the top card of your library any time. It also lets you cast dragon spells from the top of your library. So if you have your infinite mana and you have one of those 2 enchantments that I named and you name dragons and then you play Corlessa, as long as the top card of your library is a creature that draws you past non-creature effects, you can effectively continue to play the game on the same turn because you're playing dragon spells, doing fun things and all that fun stuff. Again, if you're doing Devoted Druid into Machine God's Effigy in order to make infinite mana, you're obviously in Simic because the Machine Gods makes blue, and then when you clone the Devoted Druid, you'll have access to green. But you can't just do that and be like, haha. You need to say, yes, I have infinite mana, but now I need an outlet for that infinite mana. I need to do something with it. I need to play spells, draw cards, whatever your deck's trying to do a lot of. You need to do that, and the best way is obviously to have a commander of your choice that gives you the ability to spend that mana, or if you're doing things with that mana, so that every time you do something like cast a spell, whatever the case is, you get some kind of a payoff for it. And I'll be perfectly honest, there are a lot of great Simic commanders, but they're all doing something different. They're all doing something just a little bit different, so there's not an absolute ton of Simic commanders that just flat, oh, you have your infinite mana, cool, you kind of win the game because now you have whatever payoff. The biggest one for that is going to be Gretchen Titchwillow. If you're the prof and you're watching, I got something spicy for you. If you're Josh Lee Kwai and you're watching, I'm sorry, because prof's probably going to use this and hurt you really bad. If you're playing something that plays snakes and you're playing Cassetto and you've got a snake in play that can swing and you produce your infinite mana issue, you can Cassetto and just kill a player. So there's also, if you somehow get red into the deck, there are red creatures that will give you extra combats as long as it's attacking a different player. So as long as you have multiple snakes that can swing, you can use your infinite mana, pump one snake, swing at a player, kill that player. Also to note, it just says target creature can't be blocked. The bonus only applies if it's a snake. So you could play Cassetto in a deck that plays snakes and other creatures to give you extra combats, and then extra combat, kill another player kind of deal. Gretchen's a big one. Momervig's a big one. If you're doing the fun thing and trying to just outright obliterate a player on like turn 2 or 3, Cassetto's a really good one, a really good option. Again, you have to get Magical Christmas Land. Tishana is a good one for drawing cards. It's not guaranteed to draw you into anything relevant, because it'll only draw you cards for the number of creatures that you have in play. But if whenever you draw, however many cards you draw, if you find more things to play as well as ways to bounce Tishana, you can replay her and then draw more cards. Uro's a good one because it'll draw you a card, help you put lands into play, and gain you life. Those are the only really big ones that I can see. Stalker Spheres, if you have a ton of ways to proliferate and you're playing all of the creatures that say pay an activation cost to proliferate, because that'll get you into that. If you played Kinesos, Priest of Thassa, you're probably playing Krakens, Leviathans, Serpents, and Octopuses as your predominant creature type. You can build your board state, but at that point you want your board state to be able to swing the same turn, so you also need ways to do all that fun stuff. If you're playing mostly creatures in Simic with what you're doing, there are ways to win the game without ever having to swing, but the Kinesos Priest of Thasta makes it a little bit more difficult, because most of those creature types want to swing, so you have to find a way to give them haste. If you have things that are letting you put extra lands into play, you could technically play Tatiova Benthic Druid. It says whenever a land comes to play under your control, you draw a card, you gain a life. You have to draw a card, you have to gain a life. The only time you would not gain a life or draw a card is if there was something preventing you from doing one and or both of those. If you're playing Keenan's a good one because it'll let you get stuff out of the deck. But yeah, like there's not in my personal opinion, there's not a ton of, once you have your infinite mana, there's not a ton of good commanders in Simic to have as payoffs. There are enough to build a variety of decks, but there's not, you can't like look at all of them and just be like, yeah, I'm gonna put this combo in every deck because just whatever. I really don't think that I don't feel that there's enough of them as payoffs to do anything. Give me just a second. I'm going to look at one last creature and see if... Yeah, there's not enough. I was looking at Ivy Gleeful Spell Thief. I wanted to make sure it was strictly spells and not spells and abilities. Yeah, there's not... I don't feel like there's enough Simic commander combinations that are good, that are what I would consider good payoffs once you have infinite mana. But if you're playing one of the ones that have good payoffs once you have infinite mana, try to play a bunch of ways to give you infinite mana, and then once you have infinite mana, do the stuff you want to do. So yeah, I've rambled about this for over an hour now. Again, when I get the chance, when I think about it, things have been hectic the past couple of days. They're probably going to get more hectic over the next month or two. So when I can get around to it and find some kind of software that's going to let me edit these videos, I'll start editing these videos and try and get these cards popping up on screen so you guys can look at them too and read them. If you're watching the video and you've made it this far and you know of a decent free software that's going to let me do that, and it'll make like me trying to find stuff much easier. Also, personally speaking, it would be really cool if you're going to comment and suggest one of these programs, one of these software programs, if it also has tutorial videos on like what to do. That way when I do start doing editing, I can watch a tutorial video and be like, oh, this is what I need to do in the program, instead of strictly playing around with it and screwing something up and potentially some way somehow corrupting and end up deleting a video and having to redo the video. If you like the video, if you like the content, and you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe, hit that notification bell. Please leave a comment. Tell me whether or not you liked it. You know, if you have an idea, shoot me an idea in the comments. I will be trying to make sure the Facebook page is in one of the comments on the video. I'm not at enough subscribers to pin it to the description box or as a pinned comment or anything of that nature. At some point, I'm going to sit down with somebody. We're going to come up with a deck list, and then I'm going to tell you guys about the deck list and why we're playing some of the things we're playing. I would love to, once I get figured out who I want this person to be, I would love to get this person sitting here with me and going through it so that we can do that. But that might, you know, again, that's going to be schedules lining up and all that fun stuff. If schedules can't get lined up, you know, we'll figure something out. Still trying to figure out. I can make it so that I have space available to do a commander game. I don't have anything that will let us like do a top-down look. And I would love to play some commander games with some of you guys online if possible, but I don't have a movable webcam yet in order to make it so that you can see my battlefield. Not that that really matters. I don't have like the microphone with the extra cords and stuff I've got lying here. I don't really have space to play at the moment. At some point when I have free time and I'm not got all this other stuff going on, I'm gonna try and clean out some of the space around me and hopefully like be able to move the computer so that you can get a different point of view and so that I'll have play space and the microphone and all that fun stuff. Again, all that's in the works. It's coming. It's just I need more time available than I currently have. And that's sad because I have a standard 24 hours a day just like everybody else, and I feel like I need more. I also need to really need to get in better shape, obviously, because my job is currently kicking my butt. I'm at my job, I'm coming home every day in pain. But it's a job that I'm not used to, so at some point I'll get used to it. And when I get used to it, I won't be coming home in pain every day, and hopefully I'll have enough energy when I come home to consistently put some of this stuff out, work on videos, all that fun stuff. Again, thank you for watching. I rambled on a little bit longer than I expected. If you have any ideas, comment, shoot me a message through the Facebook page. So the Facebook page is active. If you go to the Facebook page, there's a link to an actual web page. I'm still trying to get a hold of the guy that had originally set that up. So the link doesn't work because the web page is no longer active. But the gentleman who had originally set all that stuff up that I got permissions to do this stuff for still has the rights to the web page. So we just have to get stuff reset up and all that kind of fun stuff. So there are ideas, there are things in the work going on in the background. It's just time. Time is not currently our friend. Time is not currently on our side. But eventually, I hope to bring some of this stuff to you guys. I would like to see obviously I would like to see 1,000 subscribers by the end of April. I would really love for that to happen. Don't know if it will. However, if we can get 150 likes, or not likes, sorry, 150 subscribers. If I can get 150 subscribers by the end of April, I will set up a Patreon for people to join on the Patreon. And then once you join the Patreon, I'll try to figure out some goodies, maybe make a Discord, something like that. We'll try and get that stuff figured out once we get there. But that'll happen at 150 subscribers. So if you're not subscribed and you keep coming back, subscribe. All you're not in any way negatively affecting anything. You are only positively affecting things. If you like the content, hit that thumbs up button. Let me know. The more content that you guys like and that you guys appreciate, the more I try to put out faster. The more ideas I try to come up with and put things out faster. Um, if you have any ideas, if you know of some free, because currently I need free, if you know of any free uh, editing software to allow me to edit these videos and things of that nature that have tutorials, please comment that down below. I will do my best to go look that stuff up, get it downloaded so that I can start editing these things and give you guys better quality videos. Um, I know these aren't the greatest quality, but I'm doing what I can with what I have with what limitations I am stuck at the moment. If this was all I did, I would have plenty of time to go find all this stuff. Unfortunately, this is not all I do. I have other things to do. Um, that being said, all of that being said, again, it's multiple ramblings on top of multiple ramblings. Thank you, and thank you for being here at the Cardboard Kitchen, and we will see you next time